Before we jump into this episode, I want to take a moment to tell you about the upcoming Texas Woodworking Festival, a 2-day celebration where makers and enthusiasts come together to share their passion for the craft. Join us for a weekend filled with creativity, community, and inspiration. You'll meet tool manufacturers, furniture makers, woodworking clubs, content creators, and more, all in one place with great food and drinks, and of course, all things woodworking. It all takes place in Austin, Texas on September 13th and 14th. The festival features an educational track on Saturday and Sunday, plus a special pre-conference content creator track on Friday, September 12th. There you'll have a chance to learn from masters of the craft like Gary Rogowski, Matt Kinney, Andy Rawls, and Kate Casey, just to name a few. Head to the TexasWoodworkingFestival.com for more details and to grab your tickets. Use the code MWA25 to get 10% off your tickets. I'll drop a link in the show notes. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, there's something for everyone at the Texas Woodworking Festival. Don't miss it. Welcome to the MWA podcast. I'm Kyle and I'm joined by my co-host Brian. Today, we're excited to welcome J. Morgan Grove as our guest. Morgan is an outstanding furniture and chair maker, and for the past 30 years, Morgan has worked for the USDA Forest Service to promote the full cycle of trees, forests, and communities in the U.S. and internationally. He holds degrees in architecture, environmental studies, and community forestry, as well as a Ph.D. in social ecology, all from Yale. Mighty impressive. So Morgan is also the founder of Parke Storm Furniture, based in Baltimore, Maryland, and he's a lecturer at the Yale School of the Environment. So welcome to the show, Morgan.
Thank you. Great to be with you guys.
Great. I don't know if we had someone quite of your caliber, both undergraduate, master's, and PhD from Yale. Interesting.
Yeah, I was student loans. Yeah,
a lot of
student loans.
Yeah, you paid those off yet?
I have, actually.
That's fantastic. Well, before we're so excited to talk to Morgan, he's got so much experience in both from the trees to the furniture, so to speak. So it's going to be great to talk to him. But before we do that, let's hear from our sponsor, Sutherland Wells.
Okay, Sutherland Wells knows that exceptional craftsmanship deserves an exceptional finish. That's why they handcraft their full line of low and VOC exempt finishes and stains using the highest quality, cold-pressed, sustainably grown tongue oil. Their unique polymerization process delivers the deep penetrating, grain-enhancing, non-yellowing protection of raw tongue oil while reducing drying time and allowing the finish to build a beautiful, durable film. Sutherland Wells, the timeless look of traditional oil made for the modern woodworker. You can use code MW25, the numbers 25, for 10% off your first order.
Thanks so much. And we'll be seeing Sutherland Wells at the Texas Woodworking Festival upcoming. So be excited. In fact, I'm doing a panel there on finishing, and Sutherland Wells is going to be on that panel along with a couple other folks. So should be a fun time. So let's continue to pay the bills and thank our patrons. So who do we have to thank this week?
So a big thanks, as always, to our Patreon supporters. This time around, we're giving a big shout out to Obst Woodworker, which is Ron Goritsky. Really funny, very knowledgeable guy. If you would like to support the MWA podcast, you can do so by going to patreon.com/MWA podcast and then select your level of sponsorship from there. Every dollar helps offset the cost of the show, and we appreciate it very much.
Yeah. We had Ron on the show not that long ago. And speaking of patrons, we want to thank Morgan. Morgan, thank you for being a patron too.
Yeah,
absolutely. You guys are terrific.
You do not have to pay to get on the show. Let's just clarify that right out.
It was not a pay to play operation.
No,
exactly. Yeah. In fact, I looked at Morgan. I went, yeah, let's get him on the show. And then it's like, oh wow, he's a patron too. Yeah. It's always great. Well, before we get into talking with Morgan, let's check in to see what's in the shop. So, Brian, what are you working on?
Serious progress.
We don't know.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody's seen some recent stories. My wife jumped in the wood shop, and she and I went to town. We got some plywood, ripped it down, did all the dominoes. I think 128 holes. So we got 2 of the inset bookshelves completely glued up. Actually, right before the show here, I was putting face frame trim on the one.
Mm-hmm.
So by, let's see, today is Wednesday. Probably by Friday, those 2 will actually be installed. Then I have some poplar here. I'm making some simple trim, kind of farmhousey type trim that will go around that. I'm using a Lee Nielsen, kind of like a grooving tool, 66, I think it is maybe. So some serious progress. I have to give a shout out to Lee Valley.
Take that as you will.
Yeah. Sorry about that. So Lee Valley makes a really nice, like shelf hole pin type jig, all metal construction. I use the heck out of that thing on a couple of projects now. It's almost foolproof. Once if you create a dowel to give you the appropriate depth that you need, because I'm a big fan of the pin sleeves that kind of tap in, and then the shelf pin actually screws into that.
Right.
It doesn't wallow out as much. If you ever do this, just spend the money and get that jig. Saves you a gazillion time, and my wife, who doesn't do hardly any woodworking at all, was able to figure this thing out with just 30 seconds of instruction. So that is good. So serious progress. We are running out of time. I will not get this floor in before she has to start, but we're kind of picking our battles now, but it's good. We're in the right place that we need to be, considering what else is going on in life, kids, sports, and all that stuff.
Right. So yeah. It's all going to be done by the Thanksgiving break.
Probably. I mean,
yeah, there you go.
Speaking of Sutherland Wells, I want to use their products because I'm making my own floor, and I want to use their products so I need no traffic for, let's say, let's call it a week.
Yeah.
So probably over the Thanksgiving break, I'll have that floor in and sand it and stain it. Because kids will be out of the house, but I've got a large breed dog, so I got to finagle this is the no-go zone for 5-6 days. So
cool. Well, so yeah, I did see your story with your wife doing the dominoes. That was mighty impressive.
Yeah. And I glued up the one cabinet yesterday. Everything lined up perfect. And she and I glued up the big one tonight, and I'm glad, because you need 4 arms to do that and balance. And this one's 60 some odd inches wide and 48 high, and everything was fine. There was no big glue up disasters. My wife I don't think she's ever been there when I glued something up before, so she didn't quite understand the stress of having to move, because I'm a glue sets. We got to keep going. And I mean, we probably overly aggressively dominoed this thing just because I didn't want anything to sag.
Right.
The wider bookshelf does have a fixed center support, but we weren't shy with the dominoes, so we had a lot of tapping to do. And I said, we gotta keep moving. And she's looking at me why is this guy all crazy nervous right now? So type on waits for no one, so, but we're still married. It's good.
There you go.
No problems there. So we are on our way.
Yep. I have one piece of advice: liquid hide glue.
I use that a lot.
Yeah.
Any furniture piece I assembled. But I have this bottle of Type On 1 that I bought for some theater type things, and I might as well just use it. So yeah. But I am a high glue. I actually have a bottle of the Lost Art press glue.
The Piggly Wiggly.
Yeah.
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 Right.
So I want to maybe use that on the next project. But yeah, that bond's fine.
Are they still selling that?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I hadn't.
Yeah.
I need to check anyway. Yeah. Well, cool. Well, for me, all I've been doing is messing. Well, I've been back in the shop. I'm doing a gift for a friend of mine that's turning 70 later this month. So we're exactly 10 years apart. So yes, I'm turning 60 here in a minute. So anyway, actually this Sunday as we're recording. But he's turning 70. So I've been doing a little gift for him. I won't mention it because he occasionally listens to the podcast. But anyway, besides that, my AC went out in my shop. So
oh no,
I got a little window banger unit that's, mounted in the wall. And the first one I put in there, I got about 10 years out of. This one I've gotten about 8.5, 9 years, somewhere around there, which is pretty darn good. But this one, it was working fine. Then all of a sudden I noticed, I think it was on Monday. It was Monday last week. I go, it's not really cooling as well as it would. And then by Tuesday, it was not cooling at all. It's just blowing. And I went around outside to look at it. And yeah, I guess the compressor or whatever, the whole bottom of it had rusted out because of the salt air, and it dropped down. And I'm sure it leaked, the Freon or whatever's in there, R32, I think, leaked that out and, whatnot. So The biggest problem was getting the old one out of, because the way the window units fit in, you got a box that you install and then you slide the actual unit into that box. So actually getting that thing out, because it had rusted out and the condenser or whatever it is had fallen down in there. And so that was a mess just to get it out. So, and my shop crane will not quite reach as high as that air conditioner is mounted. So getting it out was like, okay, so how can I do this? All right, I need to slide it out. It's not that heavy, but it's not light. It's like 50, 60 pounds, something like that. So it's like, okay, well, I can use this table, and I have this chair, legged up. I can put that on there. I got some seat blanks I can put on top of that, because none of this stuff has been carved out or saddled. So I just stacked them all up there till I got it about, just a little bit under that. And I was able to slide the air conditioner out onto that, and then slowly remove one seat blank at a time till it got low enough where my shop crane could grab it, put it over. So
it's like the weirdest Jenga ever.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you considered a mini split?
I
don't know if that'll get you any more, because that salt there is terrible.
Yeah. I don't, they would probably last a little bit longer, but I'd still have to be replacing them. And, they're not that cheap. I mean, if these last me like 8-9 years, or, $400 to $500 a pop, I think a mini split's at least a couple of grand.
Yeah.
Plus, in my area, and I would probably have to hide it, because all of our, is it a compressor or condenser unit, whatever, the outside unit has to be mounted at least 12 feet off the ground.
Oh, because of the flood.
Yeah. So
Wow.
No. So I would probably say no, just do the window bangers every so often. So yeah, so that was but to put the new one in went in a lot easier, but just rinse and repeat, So anyway, so that was good. And I took plenty of pictures. So next time this happens, I know exactly how I installed the install. Because I was sitting there going, how did I get this out the first time? How did I put this in the first time? I'm taking pictures.
Smart.
I think the way I did it this time was easier, because but anyway, so that's, yeah, but hey, it's there, it's working. And now this unit's Wi-Fi enabled. It's basically the same exact unit as I had before, except they've updated the electronics, so now it's Wi-Fi enabled. So I can,
what does that get you? Like,
I can turn it on from upstairs, so I don't have to go downstairs to turn on. So I can turn on like 30 minutes before I'm going down. So it's at least cooler. Yeah. So not too bad. So Morgan, what have you been working on in your shop?
Well, I have a credenza that I'm making for my parents. And so my mom's 85, my dad's 89, and I've been dragging my feet about this. And so my mom decided to get serious, and she asked me if I was going to get it done before she was dead. And so
I have a rocker that fit into that same category.
So that got me feeling the juice. And so it's all dominoes and high glue. And my shop buddy Tom, he was helping me put it together, and we got it together. It was just a lot of dominoes, and so we got all clamped together. It comes out, and he says, "Wow, really didn't think that was going to work."
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks for that vote of confidence. And then, but anyway, so then I was on vacation, and then he called me up to let me know that. So we share a studio space in this old building in Baltimore that was built in 1858. And there is no air conditioning or heating in this building. And but anyways, he called me to let me know that the fire marshal had shut down the building.
Oh.
And so they got to fix some sprinkler system stuff. And anyway, so now the credenza is held hostage to the fire marshal. And I think that if I gave my mom the fire marshal's name, she might be calling him and like set it free. So I'm waiting for the green light to come on so I can finish the credenza and get that, because she also said that I might not be allowed to go to her birthday party if I don't deliver this thing beforehand.
She's not joking around.
She doesn't play. But in the meantime, I spent 4 days with Eric Canizaro learning his 2-slat chair, and got set up with that. and I have to make 10 of those for my sister go along with the dining room table that I made for her. So that's waiting in the queue. I was thinking about like, what are the weak links in that whole operation? There are many that include me, but one of them was also just sourcing all the material. So I contacted Shea Alexander, and he's going to set me up with, I sent him all the cut lists for that chair, both. So it's 8 side chairs and 2 armchairs. And so he's going to do the parts for me. I'll drive down to Shea's, pick it up, and then get to work on that. But my mom has also said to my sister, I will not start on the chairs until that credenza is done. So there's a little bit of internal strife in the family on this.
Just going to write you out of the will.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, once we get the green light from the fire marshal, I think things are going to move much better. Yeah. But so I got the credenza to go, and then I got to get going these chairs. Yeah.
Well, so on your Instagram, you have a photo of, I guess, the one that you worked with Eric on.
Yeah.
And that's interesting, the 2 slat armchair. And that is a handsome looking chair.
It is. He's done a great job on that. And I really enjoyed, I've done some other projects with Eric.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized it was just him and me in his shop in Charlotte, Vermont. And it was just really, it's very different when it's just one-on-one. And to get a time to talk about like, well, what were you thinking when you did this and when you did that? And he's got a lot of chairs in his shop, and we put them all together, and it's like, okay, well, how is this different than this one? And, it was just really, really fun. And he's a terrific teacher and a very kind person, very creative. And I really enjoyed the time. And I think it's a really nice chair. And it complements what Jeff Lefkowitz is doing with his 2 slat chair too.
Yeah.
They're serving the same family, and it's very comfortable with Eric's design.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the one chair I haven't made is those, and I need to soon. So anyway,
yeah,
I need to see if I can talk Mark into say, hey, Mark, can I come up there and you just teach me one chair? Come on, Mark.
It's yeah. I mean, it's hard. It takes a little bit of time to get used to because it's very different than a solid seat chair. Yeah. They're very jiggy.
Yeah.
And, versus like, let's just line up the drill and go on a classic solid seat chair. But they're just delightful to sit in and really nice. And I really like weaving seats. I mean, I think that is a lot of fun too.
Now he has at least at one time, didn't he have Boggs's bark machine or something like that?
He does have it. And when I talk with Eric about that,
I heard it's real finicky or something like that.
Well, apparently it's very finicky if you move it.
Oh, okay. Which it was moved, yes.
And it's sort of designed to be mobile. And so you would take it to the forest and, so I guess Jeff Lefkowitz has talked to Eric and Shea, and the notion is that Eric's going to work with Shea and it's going to go to Shea.
Okay.
And to Virginia. And then I was talking with Shea, and Shea's like, okay, well, he understands that you're not going to be moving around a lot. So you're going to be harvesting the hickory and then taking it to where you'll use in that way. And then what Shea's also talking about is rather than just taking the trees for the bark, that you would take the bark and then use the logs for, other things.
Yeah. Hickory's nice. Yeah.
But I think hickory is a challenge, and I was talking with Pete Albert about this because it's so strong that your parts actually need to be even thinner so that the chair has some flex. If you were to make a chair with the same dimensions as white oak, then the chair is not going to flex with hickory because it's just so strong. So you have to pay attention to the extra dimensioning, which then changes the silhouette of the chair and everything like that. But it's interesting, like the characteristics of the wood between a hickory and an oak would, cause some additional design consideration.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I've only worked with hickory once, and it was like for the spindles in a Veldis chair, and we made them pretty thin. But yeah, that's interesting. I did not know that. But with that in mind, you can make some really interesting chairs, really delicate looking chairs.
Yeah, exactly. And but with that knowledge, that you could really push it, right? And in fact, you need to, if one of the things that makes these chairs so comfortable is that they do flex.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So before we get further into this, tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, how you got into, forestry and woodworking.
Yeah. Well, so I grew up outside of Philadelphia in a town called Swarthmore. There's actually an R in there. It's a college town.
Okay. Are you an Eagles fan?
What's that?
Are you an Eagles fan?
Oh, I did not disrespect you guys and wear my Eagles shirt, but yes. When the Eagles won the Super Bowl, my daughter, she goes, "Daddy, why are you crying?" And I said, "I have waited my whole life for this." The first time they won when they beat the Patriots. Yeah. So, so I grew up in Swarthmore, which is the college is a Quaker college. And my family are Quakers. We came across with Penn. And growing up, it's a small town, 5,000 people. My high school was like 85 kids. Public high school. And basically I was a shop rat, and I just love being in the shop, and shop teachers like, "Don't you take other classes?" and I was like, well, I actually could graduate now, but I'm like staying in school so I can keep taking shop, and I had and that's what I really wanted to do was to make furniture. And back then, I was completely unaware that there were schools for doing that. And the advice I was given is, well, you have to go find an apprenticeship. And I remember being in Philadelphia, and, you go to galleries and you'd see furniture. And I remember seeing this piece that I just loved. And I went up to the shop, gallery owner and said, "Who made this?" And she gave me the guy's card. And, so this is in 1983. So Kyle, you and I are the same age. And
okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, you write a letter.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote a letter to this guy, and I had a deal with my dad that if I got an apprenticeship, I didn't have to go to college. And so every day he'd come home from work, and he's like, "Did you get a letter? Did you get a letter? Did you get a letter?" "No, I didn't get a letter." So he's like, "Okay, you got to go to college." So I'm like, "Okay." And then, decades later, I have a graduate student who's working with me, and she was earning a degree from the architecture school and the environmental school. And I said, "Oh, what did she do before she came to school?" And she said she had gone to Drexel for engineering and architecture, and she had worked for a furniture maker outside of Philadelphia. And I was like, "Wait, who was it?" I had completely forgotten about this, but I'd started doing furniture again. And she said, "Oh yeah, George Nakashima."
just
And
any old guy.
Yeah. And I'm like, I just stopped the truck and I said, "I am such an idiot. I wrote a letter to George Nakashima." So, so in a way, I'm trying to get back to what I wanted to do when I was 18,
right. Yeah, exactly.
But so I went to college, and I double majored in architecture and environmental studies. And then,
where I went to school, we had an architecture program, which they called architecture, because you were like up, 4 days straight. I was wondering if it was like that there.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. It totally was. So my kids are, complaining about how hard college is. And I was like, I had for 3.5 years, I had one all-nighter a week for 3.5 years.
Yeah.
And then as an environmental science major, they were like, and it was a full major. They're like, "Oh, well, we don't want this to be like, hugging trees." And so I was taking all these science courses with all the med students.
Mm-hmm.
That was brutal. Right. So it was a double form of torture. And then I went to graduate school in forestry, community forestry, and really a focus on the connections between people, communities, and their forests, and how those forests are managed, but also how that sustains people. And then eventually I went on to get my Ph.D. And I never really thought of myself as a Ph.D. type person, but I really love forests and people and working in communities. And
Mm-hmm.
so I kind of stuck with it. And then I went to the USDA Forest Service. They hired me to work in research just on these topics.
Mm.
And then and so I worked on a variety of different projects and leading the team here in Baltimore on urban sustainability and resilience.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2014, leadership came to me, and we have problem analyses, and they're like 20 pages long. They're very tortured things. Torture seems to be the theme here. And they said, urban wood, figure it out. Like that was the study plan.
Yeah.
And the motivation for this was that some research had shown that there's more wood coming out of cities going into landfills than is harvested from our national forests.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And it's an amazing amount of wood, and some of it is from demolition, but a huge amount of it is from trees that are being cut down.
Yeah.
And so that was where I started to work with the city of Baltimore on what had been to that point referred to as sort of the wood dump, to look at how we could start to change things, as well as building deconstruction in Baltimore. And if you look at the cities that were all built out before like 1920 or 1930, they were all built with old growth timber.
Yeah.
That from there. So you think about Detroit, it's all white pine. Baltimore, it was all old growth yellow pine. And any city can really just look at like where was the breadbasket that was coming to feed that city. And so there's a huge amount of really high quality wood locked up in cities from old growth forests, up until about like 1940, and that's when all the Doug fir was coming, and then it kind of declined. So it was building deconstruction and working a lot with what we refer to as returning citizens, people who have felonies that have obstacles to employment, and then with trees that are coming from street trees and park trees, and working out those systems in Baltimore. Then we started to work with Virginia. We now, there's a big project now going on in Memphis that we work a lot in California. And so that's been really the main gig that I had for 11 years. And we started to work with home furnishings companies called like Room and Board, who is a company that makes all of their wood sources, almost all of their wood sources and all of their manufacturing with small furniture makers is here in the United States. And we started to work a lot with Taylor Guitar, sourcing wood for making their guitars. They have two guitars. One is ironbark, which is a eucalyptus tree.
Okay.
And that's phenomenal. And then they have chamois ash, which is an ash tree. And they're having a lot of success with that. And so that's what I spent, working on for 11 years. And it was very helpful to have that furniture background, but also to understand trees, forestry, and communities that, it all kind of played together and was tremendous amount of fun. And also knowing people who are making stuff and thinking about like, how can we do these things that use this material, but also could really contribute to the quality of people's lives and to start to get making back into cities with wood. So that was a sort of long thumbnail sketch of
that's great.
That path.
Yeah, we here in our area, we have a bunch of, all the buildings around here, especially Galveston, and is all, old growth stuff.
Yeah.
In fact, there's one house that's on tour, and they say, okay, all the family areas and living rooms and all that stuff has this wonderful walnut and stuff. But the most valuable wood is in the servants' quarters because it's curly southern yellow pine. Which is, old growth curly pine. It's like, wow. But which is kind of interesting. But we have a company here that takes a lot of when they destroy some of these buildings, they have a lot of warehousing and stuff like that. They'll take all these old beams and just saw them into flooring. So
there's a group here in Baltimore called Almanac that does a lot of this work. Had done originally with building deconstruction, but now they do a lot of work with barns and things like that. A lot of chestnut comes out of there, white oak, old growth hemlock, which is a really light wood. I was really surprised. It makes you look really strong when you pick up hemlock, these big things, because it's so light. Never expected that.
Yeah. Well, now are you working with Camp Small? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so Camp Small is the city operation here in Baltimore. It is they take in logs and branches, wood chips, and they are processing a large number of those logs. They have 9,000 tons of wood that comes in annually, and it's kind of a constant flux. You may get some pulses because of storms, but it's fairly constant. And I actually work there on Tuesdays just because it's fun. Yeah, like the Forest Service, when I was working for the Forest Service, they were like, "Why are you doing that?" I said, "Well, it's deep ethnographic, anthropological, in situ research." And they looked at me and they're like, "You just want to do it, don't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, but I learned a lot actually by doing it." And so we have the sawmill, we have a hot air kiln, they have their vacuum kiln, and they're producing a lot of. We're maybe getting to the end of the ash, but we still have a lot of white oak and red oak that comes through the system, and they're supplying furniture makers in Baltimore. Sandtown Furniture is one. Area Fabrication is another, but then they do a lot of projects for communities that want outdoor play spaces, and so it could be logs, it could be finished stuff. We produce a lot of raised bed things for urban agriculture, and one of the things that you see in urban areas is that we have a lot of rot resistant wood that comes through the system. So we have mulberry, black locust, honey locust, Osage orange, which you really, that's, if you don't like your friends, that's what you make them cut. It's just brutal. And a lot of white oak, and so it's a lot of outdoor applications that the white oak you would find coming out of rural forests, but the other stuff, it's not really coming out in any sort of large amount of product line out of rural forests that you have in urban areas.
Yeah.
And so Camp Small, it's there's now it's Nick and Sean who run it, and then we have people who are involved, hired, who are in job training programs, and they're doing great. The younger folks, they played video games, so they get into the yellow steel, the big machinery, and it's all joystick operations, and I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna stay over by the sawmill where there's no eye-hand coordination like that required. And they are a self-sustaining operation through revenue that comes in, as well as the avoided costs. I saw a presentation today. They have revenue is about $150,000. Avoided cost is $200,000 for that operation. And
wow.
I think every municipality in the United States has a wood problem. You can't send the wood to the landfills anymore. And really, in urban and community forestry, the wood is treated as a negative byproduct, or in economic terms, we say it's negative externality. We're not planting and growing trees for wood like we are in rural situations. So they got to figure out what to do with it. And there are about 19,000 municipalities in the United States. They all got to figure this out.
Yeah.
Well, so what are they selling the wood for? You said they got kilns, so they're kiln drying the wood and stuff like that. Is it very, very competitive with the market out there? Is it below market rates or what?
They, by rule, they have to charge at the what would be the competitive price, so they're not competing per se with private industry,
right?
Because they have other sources of financing their operation, but they're not allowed to work competitively. One of the big changes was that
I could see that if I owned a lumberyard or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell are you doing? I pay taxes and everything, and you're undercutting me.
So they don't do that. The wood miser that they have can handle things up to 30 to 35 inches in diameter. There's a lot of trees that come in much bigger, and so they'll sell those logs at a stumpage price, and then take it to some of the larger sawmills that may be nearby. All of these are going to be, the sawmills are all going to be essentially horizontal bandsaws. That's what a wood miser is, and a Lucas mill, and then they'll saw them up. And we have a jar that's our nail collection. When we hit the nails, but a blade's $25.
Right.
So you hit a nail, it's like, okay, pull it out, dig for the nail and get the nail out. Sometimes these things are really big. Sometimes it's like these electrical conduits that have like trees grown into.
Bullets.
Bullets. We had visitors from Berlin.
The bullets are lead, so you might be able to actually.
That is true.
Yeah, you can cut through it.
Yeah.
We had visitors from Berlin to come and look at the operation, and they remarked that they have a lot of problems with bullets.
I believe it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, oh yeah, I forgot World War II, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But so it's they figured it out in terms of they measure out the board feet, they grade it. You can buy logs, you can buy slabs, you can buy, we have dimensional number. We have people who come in and they're like, well, I really needed these dimensions, and so we have a wood shop there and we dimension the wood.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh yeah, but I'm here with my Honda Fit. And it's like, okay, well, that's cool. And we'll cut it up. And then they look and they're like, well, okay, I can't pick that up. And they're like, okay, well, we'll put it in there for you. So it's very much, I think in this way, it's providing real community benefit, helping people who otherwise wouldn't have access to wood, to have access to wood. And then there's a certain amount of pride that it's like, these are trees from my city. And rather than seeing the trees that they love get ground up into wood chips, that it's going on to have a second life.
Yeah. That is very cool. So how long has Camp Small been in operation?
1935.
Wow. So
so it's called Camp Small because it was on the line from York, Pennsylvania to Baltimore that was supplying munitions during the Civil War. And so that's the camp name. And apparently the family that sold the land to the Union Army, their name was Small.
Okay.
And it's sort of central to the city. And so that's where all of the city operations, wood trees that are coming down have gone. The forestry division started in 1935. But it was really just stacked up wood, and then they'd pay $100,000, $400,000, $900,000, and someone would just come and take it, truck it out and then chip it, and then they'd sell it. And at some point you go like, well, why are we spending all this money for someone else to take it? Like, why can't we start to figure out how to process this? And so I worked with the team to sort of look at the operations. And, one of the first Forest Service publications, we read was, under no circumstances will this work. And I'm like, well, too late for that. We got to figure this out. And but we did, and now it's a model, and we've run training for other states who come to Baltimore, and then we've run trainings in Memphis, Tennessee, and San Diego to demonstrate how this works. And Sean Preston, he was the person who again, torture got this running, and he came with an art background, but also very handy in all sorts of things. And his job title was the yard master. I was like,
oh, nice.
That's title.
That is great. Yes.
It was like something out of Ghostbusters. It's like, are you the yard master? Yeah. And he's figured stuff out. And then Nick, who also had an art background, but also again, he had done historic restoration from North Bennett Street School. I really admire them. They figure stuff out,
That's cool.
And that's what you need is problem solvers. And I think that they are providing a real service to the city, helping people make things. And we have a number of different maker spaces, and now they come to the city, Camp Small to get material. So,
oh, that's
pretty
fantastic. Cool. Now y'all did have a little fire last year.
100 firefighters. Luckily, the wind was blowing towards the interstate.
Okay.
Which ended up being a fire break. If it had been blowing the other way, among the houses it would have burned down was mine. It would have gone upslope. So they had about a football field worth of old trees, logs, about 30 feet high.
Wow.
And we on the fire department, could not come to a conclusion about why it started. Usually at a sawmill, burns down either because the sawdust, just builds up heat too much and it bursts into flames, or because they're anticipating making an insurance claim.
Okay, gotcha.
So it was neither of those cases. It wasn't the wood chips, and it was a very windy night, and we think that there was perhaps, this is pure speculation, that there was someone who was walking their dog and smoking a cigarette, and you could see on the film cameras, like they're going and they're smoking a cigarette, and then you see them coming back and they're getting in the car. They're not smoking a cigarette, and it was purely by accident, right?
Yeah.
That it started, and so the fire started. Sean was leaving for the day. He sees a smoke at 5:00, and it's at the far end of the mill yard, and they call the fire department. Fire department gets there, and the fire's just going. And they had a contractor who had an excavator there. They call the ex guy, and he's driving down, and Sean said, I don't know how to start this. And he said, well, you need a set of batteries. And Sean's like, well, where are the batteries for the excavator? And he says, they're in my truck. This guy's bombing down, and he gets to the excavator, and on one side is the fire, which is like the logs are 30 feet high. The flames are way higher than that. It's blowing, and he's pinned in, and the fire engines are on the other side.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
this thing is
God.
full of like hydraulic fluid. And he just starts picking up burning logs and just got his way out. But the fire chief said to Sean, like, yeah, anything of value in the buildings, you got to get out.
Mm-hmm.
And but they saved all the buildings, they saved all the equipment, and and now it's like a hard reset because they've gotten all the material out. Some of that material, the burnt material, they're using for harbor restoration. They're building all these new wetlands and everything for a project. They're using it.
I thought maybe y'all, are in the charcoal business.
Yeah,
now
yeah.
Or something.
Well, I said this is a heck of a way to produce biochar. No, but they found uses for it, and now it's it's giving them an opportunity to do a reset about how material comes in, laying out a new road that goes in, and thinking about inventory management. That it's been a remarkable reset,
Yeah.
and it's got sort of like a phoenix quality to it, of just sort of rising from the ashes and, making this good. And in fact, so Union Craft Brewery, which is a local brewery in Baltimore, has come up with a Camp Small beer.
Okay.
And I said to him, well, it should be a smoked beer.
Yeah.
And they thought, oh, we can do that. And then they decided there wasn't much of a market for that. So it's a Camp Small beer, and it's a low alcohol beer, and a certain amount of the proceeds go to Camp Small.
Oh, that's nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. But I would say again is that we're seeing a lot of cities moving in this direction. So Memphis I was down there and I was counting the rings per inch on the oaks that they're growing there. And it's a growth ring per inch.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
70-year-old tree, 6 feet in diameter. These things are growing.
Yeah.
Oh,
No
quick.
kidding.
Yeah.
Wow. That's interesting. That's some good chairmaking wood right there.
That's what I said. I said, I whispered to the tree, you did not come from Vermont.
No.
Nice. That is nice. So, wow. All right. Well, I will stop stepping on Shannon Rogers' toes with his lumber industry update podcast and go into a little bit more of what you're doing as far as furniture. So, tell us about your business that you started, Parke Storm.
Yeah. So I really, the thing that sort of was like my aha moment and sort of what sort of the Lady of the Lake with Excalibur was I was listening to I think it was a fine woodworking event, and Pete Albert was saying the most intimate piece of furniture that you can make is a chair.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it just like that totally caught my imagination. And I was like, well, that's what I want to do, and it comes back to like this community orientation and wanting to make things and engage with people. That chairs kind of fit there for me. And I'm at an age, still am at an age where I can't say to my wife, well, I'm going to disappear for 9 months or 3 years or whatever to go to school to learn things. And so I, in a way, like you go to a college where you come up with your own major, like that's sort of what I had to do, was to, think to myself, well, how am I going to educate myself about making chairs? And kind of came up with a study plan for that. And that's what I've embarked upon is to learn making chairs and to learn to do that. And the name Parke Storm, and I'm going to say this, and I mean no disrespect to anyone when I say that I didn't want to come up with something that I named after myself. I didn't want to have to come up with something cute because I'm just not that smart. And I said to my daughter, who's 20, I said, I was describing this, and she said, well, why don't I? And I was also saying that it's really important to me to make generational furniture, things that will last a long time, but are of a style that they will continue to fit into things, and is made sustainably from materials, that would be made from wood from cities. And so she said, well, if it's going to be generational, why don't I name it after her brother and her? I was like, well, that's kind of dumb. And she goes, no, middle names. And so my son's middle name is Parke, Parke, and my daughter's middle name is Storm. And so Parke and Storm Furniture.
Nice. I like that.
I wanted the name to kind of fit with the spirit of things, right? And I think the other thing that I'm embarking upon, and it goes back to this idea of community forestry, is one of the guys that I work with, he when he was working with Taylor Guitar, he was also working with Greenwood. Scott Landis, I don't know if you know him.
Yeah, I've heard of him. Yeah.
Okay, so he started to work with Curtis Buchanan and with Curtis and with others to help rural groups in Costa Rica and other countries actually start to make their own furniture rather than all of that wood going to guitar makers.
Oh, and part of the Greenwood outreach effort type stuff.
So Scott Landis is Greenwood. And, so I started to talk with Scott, and then Curtis got in touch with me, and Curtis was really interested in the returning citizens aspects of things and engaging. And so I was like, okay, well, Curtis, if I'm answering your questions, I've got some questions for you about how Greenwood worked. And then, you have Chris Schwartz's work in this idea of the anarchist design.
Right.
And it's really this idea of we should all be able to make things, and then you have the chairmaker's toolbox, which again is like, okay, how do we help people be able to make things? And at the same time, my students, and I teach urban ecology, and my students are like, oh, we're gonna, urban agriculture is gonna solve everything. And I challenge them, I'm like, I don't really think you can get the scale to solve hunger in cities with urban agriculture. And they're like, okay, well, we're gonna fix you. And they said, okay, it's about food sovereignty. And I was like, oh, okay. Like they say, like, people should have the ability to choose, have access to places to grow food and what food is grown, and then the ability to have recipes and things to make things that they want. And I was like, okay, this food sovereignty makes a lot of sense to me, and that it occurs to me that we should be making the case for wood sovereignty as well. And it ties to this urban wood idea, and then it ties to what Greenwood is doing and Chris Schwartz is talking about, and I think the chairmaker's toolbox is talking about, is trying to create access for people to be able to make things. And Greenwood is a great form of making things, right? And it could be a chair, it could be a table. And so, that's sort of the adjacency for Parke and Storm, is also to want to engage in that kind of movement of how do we provide access and the ability to enable people who historically have not had access to materials. And here, when I'm saying history, I mean like the past 60 years, to be able to make things. And I think chairs is one of the great ways to do it. And we actually got funding from the state of Maryland to purchase tools and to start teaching chair making at Camp Small.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Yeah.
So who's doing the teaching as far as the chairs and stuff like that?
So we've reached out to Chairmaker's Toolbox, and to see whether or not they would be able to provide the teachers, and there's budget for them to pay them for the teaching and for their travel, and for the courses to be free. And so that's really what we're thinking about, is to reach out to the Chairmaker's Toolbox, Chelsea Witt and Aspen and others, for them to identify who would be good chair people to teach. And then that's how we're going to roll.
Cool. Yeah, because they primarily teach that staked chair. It's kind of similar to the one in Anarchist Design book. A little bit different, but similar. Yeah.
And we would, and we'd start with, okay, like, let's go out into the log yard, let's pick some logs out.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right.
Nice.
And then, go the whole process. And the notion is that you can keep coming back here, right? And keep getting more material. So it's really from, we're bringing the forest to them, we're bringing the logs to them, and it's a constant supply for them, to make chairs, to make tables. It's basically a flat thing with stakes that go into it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at anything and you could basically go through the whole anarchist design book and say, hey,
exactly.
Yeah, there's your table.
Yeah.
There's your, cupboard, bookcase, whatever you need. Yes.
Yeah. And it's very consistent with, what Scott Landis and Greenwood and Curtis was talking about. And it's very consistent with what Chris Schwartz was talking about. Right. Yeah. And so we just gotta, create examples, and then people can roll with it.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think you might have mentioned this, but I will ask it anyway. So what led you to chair making, the dark side, as I like to call it, in woodworking?
Well, it was really, listening to Pete, and then identifying, and then, okay, we're not writing letters anymore. Where we have thing called the internet, and you could search and find places where people were teaching. And, so I sort of started with, okay, what are some first chairs that I might want to learn how to make? And then as I got more familiar with things, the way I work is sort of like, okay, what are my learning objectives? Like what kinds of chairs and styles I want to do. And so I started with kind of the Windsor family, and then moved to the Ladderback family. This year's been rocking chairs.
Okay.
And I'm amazed at how much people like rocking chairs.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And what I realize is that they're not like rocking, like front porch rocking. It's like, it's really an adjustable chair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And people are willing to, like, they may not want to buy, I'm just using it as an example, like a Democratic chair. They're like, but you put rockers on it, and they're like, no, I want that.
Right. Yeah.
It's just fascinating.
Yeah.
Right.
But because they sell. Yeah.
I think that, no, but it was Pete, saying that, but then, it's trust but verify, is to start to make it. But what also really appealed to me is, in making chairs, that's an added piece to my nerddom, is that making greenwood chairs really connects with the nature of trees and wood. Yeah. Right. You're not, if, and again, I mean, no disrespect, if you're using power tools and like your saw stop, like, you don't have to really understand wood. It's just like, the saw blade connects things, but boy, a draw knife teaches you a lot about that piece of wood.
Grain, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And so, given, I had, when I was in grad school, I had to take all these classes in wood technology and how did trees grow and everything like that. And then I'm sitting in the class learning about chair making. I'm like, wait a minute, like, all that stuff really makes sense now in a very applied way. And it was very appealing to me that, understanding the difference between ring porous trees, which felt very amorphous in wood technology class, and then what it meant to make spindles versus interlocking grain, and how that affects the seat that you have, and like what wood's going to bend and what wood's not going to bend. It really connects you to not only the wood species, but also it connects you to how did that tree grow? Does it have twists? Does it have bend? Do you have knots? Like when you're working with white pine, one of the things that's frustrating if you're making a settee is that so white pine puts out branches every year of growth. Yeah. So there's no way that you're going to find a white pine that grew 5 feet in 1 year and therefore has no knots. Right. Right. And so it's like, oh, you're connecting to how those trees grew. So it's that's very appealing to me, the nature of the wood, and then the nature of how that wood grew as a tree that connects to the furniture you make. So there's those connections too.
Yeah, I got my buddy Sean Murphy who sells seat blanks, and he has several pieces set aside of white pine. He goes, these are for settees. Yeah, because he's been through all the stacks of wood he has, and just like, these are the settee ones. I won't cut these up.
Yeah, and my response is fight with big knots or just carve poplar.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like, yeah, I'm a poplar guy. I'll forgo the knots.
Yeah.
So that's also what's really appealing to me about, in particular, greenwood chairs.
Mm-hmm.
That is different than any, I feel like any other kind of furniture making. And I may be making too strong a statement, but I'm not like, oh, prove me wrong. I that's just sort of for me.
Yeah. Well, in your neck of the woods, you have access to it. I have very little access to greenwood, so I have access to a lot of kiln dry wood, and I've successfully soaked it and bent it and stuff like that. And that's what I'll continue to do, unless I happen to across some or know somebody that has some that I can buy off of them. But yeah, it's really hard to find that in my area of the country. Yeah. If you want southern yellow pine, I got all of that. I got some good pecan occasionally, but most of that is all cut and kiln dried before.
Yeah,
you can get to it.
I'm definitely sympathetic to that, and I know that like a drive to the grocery store might take you an hour and a half. So like in Texas, not that it's a really big state. In California, I think that, and I've been working with some of the mills out there that again harvest urban wood. West Coast Arborists is an example, or Street Tree Revival, where they have a lot of ring porous material.
Yeah.
It's not the typical stuff that you would hear about out east, but I really want to start to experiment. For instance, this iron bark, talking to the guitar makers, they're like, this wood splits really well. It doesn't warp, and you can bend it really well. And and they're like, oh, this is so great for our acoustic guitars. And what I really heard them say was, this is so great for making greenwood chairs.
Yeah.
So
in my neighborhood, we have oaks and stuff, but most of them are live oaks and pin oaks.
Right.
And a few post oaks here and there, but most of it's all interlocking grain oak. So it's like, yeah.
And I totally get what you're saying. I think that in other areas of the country where they bemoan that they don't have, the East Coast white oak, or they don't have white pine, I'm like, but let's roll up our sleeves and see what we got.
Yeah.
And figure it out.
Now where I grew up in North Texas, the Dallas area. Now that's where Osage orange is. I think its native habitat is Northeast Texas and stuff like that. So we had a lot of that around, which I've heard is good for bending. But like you said, it's a mess to deal with. I just remember when I was a kid. I'm sure I don't know if you know, Brian, but the fruit that comes from that.
Brains.
Yeah, it looks like a green brain.
Yeah.
Basically, it's about softball size, and it's wrinkly like a brain, and it's green. Yeah, and we just thought that was the most disgusting thing ever. And then 30 years later, I go, oh, that's Osage orange. Yes.
Yeah.
I've got a couple hand planes made out of Osage orange, and they're gorgeous. But I've never seen the fruit.
Yeah. The wood is super hard.
Yeah.
It's just like, if you have to go cut that stuff down, just take your chain sharpener with you, because you're going to be doing it like each time. But I think that and this is where it's interesting, is because in cities there's a lot of trees that are planted that are not necessarily native per se.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so again, I'm not trying to claim anything different, but I wonder if you were to look in Dallas or Austin at the street trees, you may find that there are some species there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there are. I've talked to some. I got a Sawyer up the street from me. He says, yes, if I ever come across a white oak tree, I'll call you before I stick it in the kiln. So, but that was a couple of years ago, and I've seen him a few times since then, and he's never called.
Yeah.
But we can occasionally find some red oak and stuff like that around. That's not uncommon, but I would say it's not common, but it's not out of the ordinary. But it is what it is. But hey, like I said, I've come up with my own little technique of using kiln dried wood. You got to soak it. You have a little bit higher failure rate, but so far.
How do you soak it? Is it like
just in water? I have like a big sewer pipe. I don't know, about 12 inches, say 10 inches in diameter or something like that, real tall. Actually, it's in two pieces. I got a little thing that joins the two pieces, filled up with water. And then just put the wood in there and put something heavy on top of it and just let it soak for about a week or so.
Yeah.
Yep.
Got it.
Do you use a bending strap?
Yeah. And then then after that, when I steam it, I usually steam it a lot longer, usually twice as long as you would normal green wood, and then use a bending strap. And I mean, I've done, balloon backs out of kiln dried red oak.
Wow.
Now, usually it's about, failure rates usually right at about 30%, but hey, it is what it is.
Yeah. I have a question for you, which is that, given what we're talking about, that, chairs are like a very intimate piece of furniture, that if you're in the chair business, do you think that you need to have like a number of different examples of chairs in your shop so that when people like go, hey, I'd like to buy a chair, that they can come and try out the chairs and maybe go like, well, I like this part of this design of a chair and I don't like this kind, or, it feels to me like it's a different setup if you're selling chairs versus maybe other kinds of furniture where people are like, yeah, I like that. I like how that looks, and I'll take that to it.
I think that is, but I think a lot of people will buy chairs just on look.
Okay.
But I think you will find, but I think if you go that extra step and say, hey, I know you like the look of this chair, but you need to sit in it. You need to make sure it's comfy for you. And if you have a couple of, if you have like a suite of chairs going, well, not a suite, but several chairs that they can try out and sit in. And, they may say, hey, I like the look of that one, but I like the comfort of that one. Now it's up to you to say, can you, marry those, right? Make that work or not? But yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, but I think that would give. I mean, I'm just shooting off the cuff here, but I think that would give you a competitive advantage as far as being able to talk to the client and saying, yeah, not only can I make something that you like, but I need to make sure it's comfortable. You don't want to be like Frank Lloyd Wright. Oh, these chairs are gorgeous, but yeah, you can't sit at them for more than 10 minutes.
I mean, the feel of like a Welsh stick chair is totally, at least in my opinion, totally different than a Windsor versus a ladder back. Not everybody's shaped differently, right? So it really, for me, comfort's number one, looks is number two. But if you have examples in your shop, somebody's going to gravitate towards a certain thing and just sit in it and instantly know this is what I want.
Yeah.
But do you have the space? I know a lot of guys and gals hang them up, get them off the floor, along the ceiling and stuff. So if you got the time and the space, why not?
Yeah. Part of this is sparked by a friend of mine, he and his wife want me to make them chairs. And the part of the challenge is that his last name is Maloof. And his uncle's first name was Sam. And he sits down and, I had a number of chairs and he tries one and then he tries the other and he goes like, I like this, I like flat spindles, but I like the look of this democratic chair. And he's like, can you make me, I was like, well, that's okay. That puts us in the Velda world. But, it's very interesting to see. It's very interesting. I almost feel like, you're kind of like a shoe salesman or something. It's like, you're like, try these on, walk around and see what you like. But it's actually, I find that really enjoyable, because you're able to make something for exactly how they want it.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I have heard, I think from Jeff White, that the Velda chair, you can do the Maloof spindles in the Velda chair.
Yeah.
Which makes it very, very comfortable, more comfortable than, Velda chair is comfortable. I have one, but he says it's a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah.
With the Maloof spindles in there. So.
Well, Pete Albert's rocking chair is super comfortable.
Oh, yeah.
That's got those spindles, that.
Exactly.
That yeah. So but it's listening to how people, what they find comfortable and what sticks out to them literally that they don't like.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I've been puzzling on this and I think, Brian, the idea of, you use the shaker, pegs and just, have them hanging up on the wall and then someone comes by and it's like, oh, take a look.
Exactly. Now, so you've taken a number of classes. So you said right now you've done your Windsor study, and now you're into your Ladderback study. So,
Yeah.
where are you going from there, or are you, or is that the?
I think it's spending more time in sort of people who are teaching classes in the design of chairs.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I did one settee with Eric Cannizzaro,
Okay. That
and
was that
I,
settee that's on
yeah,
your
yeah, and
Instagram.
I said to Eric, Eric, how many times have you taught this settee? And he said, oh, this is the first time. And I said, well, what made you think that we were going to be able to do it, in 7 days? And he said, well, I didn't. I was like, well, I'm glad that we have the proof of concept, but so I think design, but I think that trying out like another settee would be really great. I really like settees, and where it's two people sitting together
Right.
is very attractive to me.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something that I think that I'd like to do. So some of the design, but also I think the final form that I'm really interested in is getting a better handle on making settees and different manifestations of it.
Yeah.
I think the democratic settee is really gorgeous. I think Sawyer's settee is a really beautiful settee that he has. So I think those are some of the directions, and I'd like to teach with a small T, like at Camp Small and helping out with something like that. But I think that there are better teachers, and so that I'll leave to others.
Well, yeah, you might as well give it a shot. I think you'd be good at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you have a teaching background a little bit, and from what I've understood from everyone that teaches is you learn far more than the students will. You'll get as much out of it as you will as the students will. So
yeah.
But you probably already know that at this point. So anyway,
no, I mean, like we were talking earlier about this idea of sovereignty, and like I wouldn't have come up with that until I got into a contest of wills with my students.
Yeah.
In that, I also think that learning how to weave seats in different patterns and with different materials, like that's a whole, okay, maybe that's getting a little bit, down into the details, but I think that is another skill, that I'd like to pursue more. And looking at, again, I'm showing my nerdishness about like what kind of dyes are there that we can make from plants that we find in cities. That we could grow in cities that we could use to dye material that we could use in our seats. That's something that's kind of interesting to me. Like indigo is something that's really easy to grow in cities, right? And that could be beautiful. So that's, I think, another direction to explore.
Interesting. Yeah, that is. Well, so what's your favorite chair you made so far, or favorites?
I really like the thinking behind and the design and the challenge of making it democratic.
Okay. Yeah.
It really teaches you your skills.
Exactly.
To do it. I think the Velda chair is beautiful. And I think Pete's rocker is beautiful. And it's fun to make. But I really like the ethos, everything about a democratic chair. Right. And I find them super comfortable. Others may not find them to be super comfortable. And there's a lot of subtle things that make that chair work, that take a lot of that challenge your skills to make, so that it really comes out really crisp and clean. With a draw knife that you don't quite get if you were to do things on a lathe.
Right.
So I really like that. I really like that chair a lot. But it's sort of like asking you, like, who's your favorite child?
Yeah, exactly.
It's but and I really like Eric Cannizzaro's 2-slat chair. Like of the slat chairs, it's super comfortable, and I like the thinking behind it. I think that I think making Jeff Lefkowitz's 2-slat chair would be a lot of fun too. I find Brian Boggs's chair to be beautiful. I think it is designed out to be the last inch. Like it's in a way it's almost it is perfect. Like
Right.
there's no way that, so the comment is that a lot of these chairs are chameleons.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can tweak it, or you make a mistake and you call it a feature. But the Boggs chair is just like, no, it's perfect. Don't mess with it.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the final iteration of this chair. Yes.
And so it's a beautiful chair. Yeah. And I kind of felt like when I made one of those, like Brian Boggs was like looking over my shoulder, which may be like, this grandiose notion of things, but he's like, make sure you get it right. And so for me, that I guess it's less fun to do that, but that's just me. But I definitely think that, and it goes to, Brian, what you were saying is like all these chairs, they fit people differently. And so what's kind of fun is to develop a repertoire so that when you're making chairs for certain people, that you're sort of pulling from that list of features. And in that way, you're sort of like you're not cooking from a recipe. You're cooking from like, okay, here's your ingredients. Here's what we're making tonight. And, I like that challenge.
Scratch cherry,
Yeah. So I like that. And, I was showing a chair to a friend, and because she wanted a chair, and she's like, no, that's way too modern. And she goes over to the continuous armchair and she goes, that's what I want. I was like, and that is what you get.
There you go. Nice. Well, so what kind of construction methods do you use? I think mainly you're using hand tools, but do you use any machines in your chair making or any of your making?
I think just a bandsaw.
Okay, just a bandsaw.
I picked up an old DeWalt 14-inch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And maybe someday it'll see 220 in its future. But I got the dust collection hooked up on that. But I really enjoy, for making chairs, just hand tools, maybe a power drill.
Right.
But I have, an old fashioned hand drill as well.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is very pleasing.
Yeah.
Cathartic.
I don't, I think, at a shameless plug is, I think that the jigs that you've developed, Kyle, for drilling, it's like, I can do the the mirror, and I can do the laser, but I'm okay with using your jigs, and like, let's just rock and roll here, people. But those aren't really power tools by set,
No.
But they definitely.
You can use a brace with my tools, yes.
Yeah, it's but it's very pleasing to use hand tools, and I'm not in production mode.
Right.
So it's basically a drill and a bandsaw.
Right.
For things.
Well, cool. Well, so tell us a little bit about the shop that you're building these chairs out of.
Once the fire marshal's done with us.
Yeah, once the fire marshal's done with you.
Yeah, so I share a space with my friend Tom Riley, who we were both taking a class with Greg Pennington.
Okay.
And you're going around and everyone's introducing themselves, and Tom introduced himself as, he's Tom and he's from Baltimore. And then we get around to me and I'm like, I'm Morgan, I'm from Baltimore. And they're like, oh, did you guys come together? And I was like, no, I've never met him before in my life. and we've become really good friends.
Nice.
He's Australian, and he made me promise I wasn't going to say mates. So, cause he says Americans don't understand the nuance of that word. So but I'll say we're buddies, right? And so the space that we currently are in is 12 feet by 22 feet, and it's really too small. And we're hopefully there'll be another space once the fire marshal gets done that we could move to, that is really like 25 by 25.
Mm-hmm.
And it's it's in the corner of the building, and it faces north.
Right.
And it's got, because, back in the day in 1858, there was no such thing as air conditioning except for what's called a breeze.
Right.
It's got these windows that open up, and it looks down a street. So it's got really good light.
Yeah.
And that's where we look to work. And it's got, all old beam floors, and Yeah, it's pretty solid, and then huge wooden beams that come up through that support the floor above it and the roof and everything. So it's historic, and that's our space. It's right around. It's on the same block as the tool library, which is a space that does tool lending for private individuals and households, and they teach lots of classes. And then around the corner from that is a place called OpenWorks, which is a maker space that does furniture. I mean, it does woodworking, metal, sewing, and 3D printing. So, again, if you don't have the machine that you want, you just,
Right.
I use my pickup truck as a wheelbarrow, and we just like drive around the corner and do what we got to do and then come back.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. I wish we had more of that stuff around me, but we do, but it's all in Houston. So it's all, 50 miles away and
Yeah.
and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, maybe I'll just buy it.
Right.
If I need a tool or something like that. But it would be nice to have some, easier access to me for CNC and stuff like that and all that.
Yeah.
Kind of stuff. Luckily,
they have CNC, they have laser.
mhm. Yeah. Luckily, I do have a couple of buddies that have that, so it's not too big of a deal for me. But still, it'd be nice. Be nice to have, some where I wouldn't have to, I hate asking. It's a Texan in me. We hate asking people for help.
Right?
It's like we want to do everything ourselves. That kind of thing. So
Well, the East Coast, it's like people aren't nice, but they're kind.
yeah,
And so you ask for help, and you settle in for 15 minutes of abuse about like how you're an idiot, and then they'll help you.
yeah.
And then the deal is you just give them a 6-pack of beer and like everything runs.
Yeah.
There you go.
So there's a lot of furniture makers here in Baltimore who, if you don't know how to do it, or you need a second hand set of hands, or you don't have the piece of machinery, like they won't be nice, but they'll be kind, and it's good.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
And we call Baltimore Smaltimore. It's like everyone knows each other.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's sort of our shop situation. We're sort of, waiting for the
Fire marshal. Yeah.
the fire marshal to go. The sprinklers are fine.
Yeah. You sure you can't, just go local fire station and get a firefighter or go, can you at least escort me into there so I can remove the credenza?
Well, so here's the one of the fire department, one of the firehouses, they came in and they want to make a new table for their mess.
Yeah.
For feeding everyone. And so we were helping at Camp Small, and they came, they picked out the boards and everything. And then they said, we've got the best idea for the legs for this table. And we're like, okay, what is it? They said, we're going to use old fire hydrant. and Nick and I just looked at each other and we're like, you can see a little bubble up above our heads going, that sounds like the worst, most kitschy idea I've ever heard in my. And then we said, wow, that sounds like a great idea.
Yeah. How much do those weigh a piece?
Yeah. So big burly people. I mean, this is all 10-foot length, sugar maple at 6/4 now. But it's no, I feel like I should say to the guys from the firehouse, it's like, can you help me out here? Like, just have a word. But I think we got to play this straight.
Exactly. Well, so tell us a little bit about what you're doing at Yale. You say you're teaching a class there, or?
So I'm teaching. I teach the required urban ecology class.
Okay.
There, and it's taught out of the Yale School of the Environment for their urban concentration. But I have a lot of it's open. It's a university, and so it's open to all the other schools and to the undergraduates. So I have a number of undergraduates who are doing environmental science. Now it can be its own major. And every now and then I want to be the grouchy guy that says, back in my day.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I don't do. And they're terrific. I have a number of students from the Divinity School.
Okay.
Who come, and from the School of Public Health, from the law school, from the business school, and from the architecture school. Yeah. So it's we have a lot of different perspectives in there. It's it meets one day a week. So I get on the train at 7:30 in Baltimore, and I get off the train in New Haven at 11:30. I teach from 1 to 3:50. I get back on the train at 4:30, and then I'm home at 9:30.
Yeah, it's a full day. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plenty of podcasts.
Exactly.
listen to.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I've taught that now. This will be my 6th or 7th year. And yeah, it's fun. And it's good to be around young people,
Right.
with lots of ideas. And yeah, I love it. And the other thing that I do now that helps to contribute to that is I'm on the city sustainability committee, that offers other professional insights into how things operate. And I would like to develop a new class, which would be the idea of you first start with a chair. You start to see a theme,
Yep.
and then it's like, okay, well, why is this chair made this way? And and it's the characteristics of the wood, and then the conversation becomes, well, where does this wood come from? In terms of communities of forests, what is it? What are forests? What is the history of forestry in the eastern United States? And then you get it'd be the full 10 weeks. You keep, it's sort of like the ripples. And
Right.
at the middle of this ripple is a chair. And then at the end of the semester, you make a chair.
Nice.
So
Yes.
that's what I'm working on and talking to some people about. Would they be interested in co-teaching that? But we'll see whether or not that gets through academic review.
Solid,
we'll see.
solid
I'm
idea.
just, I'll be ready for like comments about basket weaving.
Yeah.
So, but no, I really enjoy that class, and I think I'd like to teach it for a few more years, and then I'm a big fan of like kind of getting out of the way eventually and making room for young people. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, so do you have any other pursuits outside of woodworking and what you're doing as far as with Camp Small and at Yale? Or do you have time for any other pursuits?
Well, my luck. So I had a girlfriend one time, and we were walking through a park that had lots of trees. And at some point, she got really frustrated with me, and she says, "Why can't a walk through the park just be a walk through the park?" And I was like, "Okay,
Okay.
yeah, I think we got another week, and then we're breaking up."
Yeah. Yeah.
You're out.
I just
You live and breathe. Yes.
I just honestly I really enjoy what I do, and what I do has many outlets.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
it's teaching, it's learning, it's making, it's helping out the people who used to work for me at the Forest Service. They're still got we have research pods that we expect to go 30 and 50 years, and they need some muscle, and I'm like, well, I'll come out,
Yeah.
I'll help you. So that is everything revolves around trees in one way or another, in one manifestation or another.
Well, I tell you, Morgan, I am very enamored about what you've done, and it's something else. It's something else. It's been a pleasure talking to you, but we're not done with you yet. We need to move on to our fortnightly beer choices. So I am drinking, and I'm not sure if I've had this before, but I'm drinking Dogfish Head Grateful Dead Juicy Pale Ale,
Wow.
which is a nice little IPA.
Yeah.
And it's pretty mild too. It's only 5% alcohol, so not too bad.
Wow.
I've heard that it's good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not bad.
That sounds delicious.
Yes. So Brian, where are you working?
Was
Or
recently,
drinking?
Yeah. Well,
Working, drinking,
you
whatever.
can combine both. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. I was recently up in Massachusetts, got to restock my treehouse stash here.
Ooh, nice.
So there's something about like grabbing a nice cold IPA draft, they have like food trucks there, getting like a lobster roll and then go sitting in the Adirondack chairs in the woods. It's like, I love it. But this one is called Where Did the Time Go? It's a double IPA. Very smooth. Highly suggest it if you can find it. 100% I would drink that again.
All right.
Morgan, what about you?
I'm actually having you won't probably come up Camp Small beer.
Oh,
So,
okay. There you
I'm
go.
drinking the Camp Small beer, which is it's a great, really hot summer beer. It's I think like 2.4 alcohol. It
Nice.
what we refer to as a shower beer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it's technically it's what a session beer is what they call it. Those are the lower alcohol, like the threes. And
I don't know. I mean, they just, they ended up coming up with it because it's a play on small. It's a small
Yeah.
beer in terms of alcohol. It's got less than, what you might find in other parts of the country in terms of alcohol. And it's nice and crisp and clean. And I'm not a lightweight when it comes to drinking beer, and my lightweight friends, they're feeling good. They have 3 and like, they're feeling like, look at them.
There you go.
So I really like it. So that's what I'm drinking today.
All right. Fantastic. Cool. Well, so Morgan, where can folks find you on the interwebs?
So I'm on Instagram at Parke Storm, and my old sort of legacy Instagram is also Urban M Grove, which goes to that teaching urban ecology.
Yeah.
And on my website is parkeandstorm.com, and Parke is Parke, and is AND, not ampersand. So parkeandstorm.com.
All right. Fantastic. Well, let's jump into some feedback. So what do we have this week?
Okay, so regarding episode 566 with Jonathan Hammock, sorry. This one is from Bill's Yard. It says, looking forward to this one, guys. And then our good friend of the show, Robert Tolnai, says, excellent interview. Great job, guys. And then we have Laurel DeHill, which just says, great interview, ! So if you would like to leave us some feedback, we like to hear anything positive, negative, constructive, maybe not so constructive. You can leave it on the MWA podcast Instagram. And we would also appreciate any sort of like 5-star review you can give us on your podcast streaming device of choice. That helps get the show out in front of additional people.
And that just about wraps it up for this show. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the show on the podcatcher of your choice. Just search for the Modern Woodworkers Association. And while you're there, please leave us a review. You can follow us on Instagram at MWA_podcast. And if you'd like to support the podcast, go over to patreon.com/MWA podcast. But the best thing you can do is tell a friend. Word of mouth goes a long way in sharing our discussion.